We're going to show you how to create methods in Java. Public static. No, first public class. Let's name the class name method demo. Public static void main. So that's one method, right? Name main. When you want to add more method, you can just, after the curly braces closing that main inside the class, just add more method. And if you make method statics, just name statics. Now, if you want to use this method inside another method, if another method, in this case is main, is statics, then this method has to be statics. Okay? Remember, I want you to focus on what the difference between statics method and non-statics method. One thing is, if the method that you try to use, that you create a new one, like say for example, this method find, like in math we have square root, absolute, right? They pretty much just create the method like that. Like for example, if I want to create my own absolute, you don't have to, you can use math, right? Absolute. Just try to show you that how math, because we in this chapter 5 we try to learn how to create a method and create your own class. That means you've been using a class like scanner or math string. Now you can actually create your own class named math, create your own methods too. So in this case, I try to show you that I try to create a method named absolute, just like math.apps. But my logic may be different. But of course, when it returns, method has to return something. So this is the data type that I have to define. In main, it's not return anything. That's why it's void. When the method not returning anything, is void. But if it returns something, in this case, I'm going to return an absolute, an integer number, so it's an int. So this method is an int. That's the data type. Now, you have to pass some number in. Right? Method is just like a function in math. Right? So when we learn math, we learn method already, like f of x. So that's the method, right? X. Like how to make an absolute. So you normally use that symbol. Right? And then if I set f, have to pass in -3, it's going to be 3. Right? Or f3 is going to be also 3. Always positive. So this is what we want to implement here. Absolute. I just named absolute. Represent that 2 bars. So I need a what we call an argument. When we call an argument is like -3 and 3, right? Has to pass in. X is a parameter, so I need to create a parameter here. Then the method, when we use it, it can just pass the argument. To create that, let's say I'm dealing with an integer, int x, right? In this case, I just want to say x, but because I just mentioned about x like that. But a good rule of thumb when you name your variables, we don't want to name like a, b, c, or x, y, z, right? You should name it something that meaningful. Like you don't want to call absolute like a, method a. Who's gonna know it's going to be absolute, right? So same, you don't want to call parameter as x, because everything here is going to go on Java doc. Like if you look at like that, right? So absolute, int a like a number that you provide. Okay. So a better way to name, you might want to name like number, right? Then you know that you want to provide number, right? Like num or number, right? So now this method has to return, so you have to type the word return because it's an int. Like void, you don't have to return or word return. So what we're going to return? So we have to make sure that num is always going to be, when it returns, going to be positive. So if I return num, it can be negative back. Then this is the point where you can do if else, right? So we can do shorter version of if else that we have just learned when we talk about if else, right? Short version of if else. So num greater than 0. If it's true, then it's going to return num, right? Else is going to return. So shorter version of if else is what? Question mark colon, right? So this has to go with question mark first if it's true, and then else is colon. It's going to return. That means it's negative, right? If it's not, I have to do greater than or equal to 0. So it's going to return. How you make num to be positive, you may just say minus 1 times num, right? Multiply with the negative numbers. So we are done with the method. Now how to use this? We already know how to use that. We pretty much just call it, right? Just the way that we call f and then pass the number to test, right? So absolute and number minus 3. Now we might want to, it's going to return an integer, so we're going to print it out to see if it's going to do what we expect it to do. So we're done. That's how you create the methods and using the method. Now let's test this. Okay, there's no errors, so voila, we get a positive 3 out. So now we can make this program more interactive, like prompt the user to enter, right, the numbers. If you want to use scanner, just put scanner. If you want to use the option pane, just put the option pane. Or last time we talked about graphic user interface, we can use JavaFX to take care of this.